All right, let's jump into things. Where it is 9:51 on Thursday, 21st of May. So a little bit later this morning, but that's all right. We had a bit of action overnight, and look, it wasn't like a sort of shock. Oh my God, where's this thing come from? Kind of move. I mean, look, I'm starting on gold here, but have a look at the dollar. I mean, this is kind of the plan that we've pretty much been looking for. So, down, up to the top. It's so close to actually closing that gap. Uh, I was looking for this to just tip up here and then to get this back down over here. But of course, we've had sort of the market trying to front run this sort of thing a couple of times. I don't think it's dead yet. I think it's come back to, a pretty sort of prominent little level here. We saw a little bit of a bounce into close. Um, and sort of like, that gap still is technically open. But this is the chop that we kind of, well, that I was kind of sort of calling for up through here. I mean, always with hindsight, you can see these things that it was forming a little bit of a negative divergence through here as well. Let me just get on Neg D. So you can see that sort of like, obviously, it had the hallmarks of this thing turning. It had the sort of target of, okay, here, and it just so happened that the headline sort of popped out at that moment as well. So interesting sort of stuff, interesting timing with it all. I think the question at the moment is that it in terms of the sell down? Are we going to see another leg lower? Or are we just going to see this potentially range? Or are we going to see, one, two, maybe a third drive, close that gap, and then sort of come back down here? I think the fact that we've had these two sell downs here need to be noted because obviously the market's trying to sort of hunt these levels here and we're seeing it sort of like definitely sort of protect it. Um, I would sort of be reluctant to sort of think that this is going to at this stage come a lot lower. I mean, look, we again, like I always say, we could come back later today and see a bit more of a move down here. Look, timing's not my forte in terms of sort of not necessarily timing, but sort of like how long moves can last for. That is not my forte. The levels, where the buyers are, where the sellers are, that's what I work with. One thing I've sort of always sort of found is that when I think it's sort of, oh, this move would be done, it goes a lot longer. Or in this instance, oh, I thought we could get just a little bit higher, and then boom, we dropped out a little bit quicker. So look, anyway, we'll see how we go with it all. We can certainly see that we know where the buyers are sitting through here. So as long, excuse me, as the market sort of holding above, 98, 98, but just call it sort of like, around 99, this kind of round number here, you can see that it's starting to build a little bit of a range. And we could almost sort of pop this up over here because like this one obviously hasn't been able to close out the top side of it here. So it doesn't mean that this pushback down here is done, but at the same time doesn't mean we've sort of failed and we're coming down here. I think a close back down underneath sort of a, fairly decent one, but a close underneath this zone here could see a little bit of further sort of pullback. It's just a matter of really how much does the market, how much weight do they want to put on that movement from last night? Look, as I said, look, I thought we were going to get a pullback here. The reason I say about the timing is because I thought once we close this gap, that's kind of consider it objective complete, and then we would see potential for a couple of day pullback. This is obviously just overnight, so this is only one day. And as you can see, buyers sort of stepped into the close as well. They didn't even allow it to sort of close down the bottom over here. But as you can see, we are consolidating at the top, at the highs over here. Well, the highs have this sort of moved back up over here. Very close to closing that. I was watching some guy and he's like, no, we'll close the gap, but I don't think it's quite closed there yet, in my opinion anyway. I mean, look, you can see maybe you got different feeds and I think his one had a wick down here, so you could say that it's closed. So maybe that was it. Maybe it's just the feed that I'm using. Let's have a look on something else. No, look on this. It hasn't closed. This same sort of thing hasn't quite closed. These people seem to have deleted themselves. Who was this? FX open. Maybe they've gone bust. How do I delete this thing? This one. Whatever. Do it later. Where are we at? That's gold prices there. Where was that? DXY was on. So yeah, you can see on the daily that obviously the buyers sort of came back in, but we are overbought. We're consolidating near the highs. I do look. I'd be reluctant to think that this is just going to power on, given all this sort of stuff at the moment. I think a couple of rejections here does mean that most likely, if we are to go up here, which is the main objective to sort of find what we're going to be doing, in my opinion, sort of through summer, course of action to that overall will be down into this level and then up over here. Now, the question with this is, does this continue down here now, or do we see this in the interim, like that? They're the kind of two sort of moves that I'm kind of looking for, but both of them result in some weakness with the dollar before strength in a medium term sort of environment. Excuse me. So if we get onto lower-ish kind of time frame, 4 hour here, look, as I said, I think sort of underneath 98, call it 99 round number, whatever these supports through here, I think that this is what we're going to be seeing. So we'll have a deeper sort of correction. However, a third drive in this move could also see it just get to the highs over there, because even if you were to just put that in there nicely, that seems to line up pretty well with where you could say, hey, look, resistance, resistance, third drive, and then we sort of start to sort of come down there. So I wouldn't be surprised if the move from last night on a couple of these things does get undone. If we go back to gold, only just for the fact that I think it was mainly just a headline about, hey, look, we're going to have a meeting. And they're great, like, you know what I mean, all the best to them, but nothing's actually changed. It's just, you know what I mean, it's more a speculative move. Or potentially something good's going to happen. How many times have we seen this stuff, particularly into weekends, when the market's like, oh, yeah, sweet, they're going to have a talk. Oh, sweet, and the market shoots up. And then they go, oh, hold on, wait, no. Both sides have some unrealistic demands, and so nothing's happening, and move undoes. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Look, back on the gold, we got a little bit of a negative divergence that was sort of forming here. Look, I did sort of cover this. Yes, whoops, where's that gone? I did cover this yesterday, mainly with silver, but I can't remember if I touched on it with gold as well. But you know, we were getting the sort of like the technical setup for this kind of stuff. We were at this point down here where we could have really just sort of come down either way with it all. Like this is the silver chart that I had on here yesterday, and I was saying that this is the sort of, you know, you want to call it an inflection point, I don't know, whatever. But I was saying that, look, we do have the potential for a negative divergence should we see some sort of potential rally. And obviously we got the rally up through here. We got above that sort of back up above that 75.20 sort of mark level that I sort of marked out, back up above those kind of supports there. And as you can see, RSI continued to the top side, negative divergence kind of confirmed. And now we're just sort of saying, is this thing just in a wave to sort of roll down a little bit further? Sometimes we sort of see with these negative divergences, they don't really sort of act on the first, on the first bounce, which would be the sort of the second push down. You can sometimes get a little bit of an extra push there. Maybe this was that one there. Look, we'll have to sort of wait and see with this thing here at the moment. But I think the big question is that it? Like, it's been a dramatic sell down. Like, there's certainly nothing knocking this sell down. I mean, we've gone from, 89 down to 73 over the course of a week. So, you're bound to see some sort of pushback here at some stage. And it just so happens that these headlines and the dollar sort of pushing up at that point is that kind of sort of stuff. So we just got to keep an eye on things. So let me just manage it, position up there. Keep an eye on things to sort of see if this is it. That's the bounce, and then we keep coming down, because till we take out these highs over here, you're potentially just going to see sideways-ish kind of stuff, in which, if it gets higher, you short it, gets lower, you buy it, that kind of thing, till we sort of break above sort of 79, really kind of probably above 80 to sort of really clear out this zone. But otherwise sort of break 73 to the downside. So I'll just update that fib, and we can sort of see how high and how strong are they going to come with this bounce. I actually see metals push up a little bit here, new session highs. Aussie dollar is coming down. So yeah, look, we'll sort of see how we go with this one here. Not really a great deal like, you know what I mean? I'm not feeling as sort of confident with this kind of chop setup as I have been the last couple of sessions. This week's actually been quite good. And if you look at the weekend analysis, it's really played out exactly kind of as I was looking for. This move yesterday, if you look at the analysis, I was calling for some reversal, mainly based off that dollar move. But of course, because I got a little bit sort of, oh, wait for the perfect thing, i.e. the gap to close on the dollar, I took a long around 60 here, but I got out, I don't know, 75, 80, sort of only a small little bounce here because I thought there was still the risk, obviously, that we come back down over here. But that headline just came out of nowhere and I wasn't positioned for it, so I missed out on that one. But look, that's not end of the world. I don't think this is necessarily a buy and hold kind of position at the moment. I really want to see what happens with the dollar. I still think that has an objective above, which is closing that gap. And then I'd be looking to sort of maybe look to hold something. So I wouldn't be surprised if we undo the levels in which those headlines came out last night, if you put it like that. Have a little flick back over to the Aussie. Aussie here, like I did actually put this up yesterday and I said, look, this is looking like a nicely measured move down here, isn't it? I mean, this isn't really a flag. This is more just to show that kind of level there. This is more just measuring this sell down, pull back, and this sell equal length move coming down over here. Obviously, again, we got those headlines coming out. You can see it was appreciating a little bit prior to that headline coming out anyway. So, maybe if people had a bit of a sort of a front position on stuff, who knows? But yeah, certainly it's trying to sort of fight itself back up. What we could actually, I was looking at this, it was on a different chart, but this is an interesting area for me. This is This is where the data came out at mid 2024, because what you potentially have setting up here, we know this is a bit of a support area. You can see it through here. We've got a full low here. I want to see what happens over here. I do think we'll see, as I said a second ago, a undoing of that level where the headline came out. That only takes you to say 71.24. But do you see where I'm going with this? Like, if we do come down here, that's fine. I do think that we'll probably dribble down to this level here, unless we just flip and go all the way up over here. But should we come down here, I think you got to ask yourself, what are we going to do? Because look at that's potential for an inverted head and shoulders, which could obviously sort of get you back up a little bit higher. Now, as I said, that's not my base case, but the thing is, I'm not moving the markets. I'm just doing what they're doing. I'm following what they're doing. That actually takes you right back up to the highs. Now, you got to think, what would have to happen with this? Well, as I said, some dollar push that'll get us down here. Then a continued or prolonged dollar sell down would get us pushing back up over here. There's a lot for this to happen, and as I said, it's not my base case, but should we come down to 71 and hold 71 again and start to appreciate up towards 71.80, 71.90, and then break that, well, that's an inverted head and shoulders, and that's a time that you'd probably be looking for a fairly decent little move back up to the highs. Now, overall, Aussie's been incredibly resilient through the last last year and a bit actually. But let's get these off here. If we have a look at this kind of move here, this is around the 38% as well, this support level here. So it'd be interesting to see what happens should we sort of get back down to that level over there. At the moment, RSI is not even completely overbought. This is why we're on the 4-hour here. However, we have got a little gap down, we closed it, and we've now flipped. So should this thing sort of push back down, as I said, 71.24, 71.25, that kind of level there, down to 71.16 for potential inverted head and shoulder setup. Should that sort of play out? Not my base case. I do think that this is just a little bit of a, hey, super euphoric headline, everything's going to be okay, reality sets in. No, it's not. But, you know, one more drive down here, 1, 2, 3, would be a better sort of position should you want to sort of take a couple of sort of counter move longs down into these over here. I'm just at this stage reluctant to. I'm certainly not chasing this. I'm happy to let this thing go if it just wants to just rip up here now. Certainly above 81.9, 71.80, 71.90 above that now. You might sort of see a bit of a move, but yeah, we'll have to sort of wait and see with that. So even look, as I'm saying all this sort of stuff today, it doesn't feel as clean cut as some of the analysis has been through this week. And I think that's got to be a sort of bit of an indicator that sort of like, participate. As I said, I do think, particularly here, I think Aussie's a pretty decent chance to sort of come back down to those levels there, but participate at a lower level till it looks a bit more clean cut. Because this is a question mark now, these moves overnight. Is that headline a real move, or is that fluff? I tend to sort of think the latter on that it's just a bit of fluff. Um, but, we could see these things. We're seeing a little bit of a pushback here. I'm just going to be watching the dollar, see what the dollar wants to do. It's, just sort of consolidating at the lows at the moment. Dollar pushes back up. We're going to see metals come down. We're going to see Aussie obviously come back down here a little bit as well. But, it's just one of those things. Can the dollar just take out the highs and then sort of come back down? That's a big question. Just finally, before I click on, it's very short, 16 minutes. I didn't normally do 16 minutes rabbiting on just about the dollar. But unemployment data coming out for Aussie today. Look, unemployment rate 4.3%, looking to be standard there. Very low expectations here. Couldn't even get their funny bets up into the 20,000 mark. But we'll see how it goes with that. That's is something to watch with all this sort of stuff because we've got inflation problem over here. If you don't have an unemployment problem, as in if this is lower or if this is a little bit higher, unemployment rate lower, employment change higher, then that means jobs are okay. If jobs are okay, well, that means that your focus isn't there. Your focus is on inflation. Inflation is higher, so that could be sort of like, okay, we need to cut. Sorry, need to hike. Sorry. I got distracted. I was looking at Aussie dollar breaking a little bit lower under its supports. So you got to sort of what was I saying? Let me just start that again. If jobs aren't an issue and inflation is, then you need to hike. If sort of employment's pushing up and these are coming in weak numbers, well, that means there's a question mark on whether you're going to. It's not so clear cut that you've got to hike, and I think the market's potentially pricing for a hold next. But I did hear yesterday potentially that some analysts, air quotation marks, are sort of looking for potentially 3 hikes, which is still very bullish for the dollar if that were to happen. Anyway, that's about it. We got a bunch of PMI data in that later on today. Nothing too exciting. We got unemployment claims out in the US, still around that 200 to 210 marks, still okay with it all. And then PMI's 11:45 tonight. All right, that's it from me.